Three, two, one.
And we're live. This is The Human Condition. I'm Vince Orlando, here with...
I'm Sean Davis.
I'm Steve.
How's it going, guys?
Wonderful. How do you feel today?
Oh, man, it's been better. It's been better. My daughter was out for a few days, first few days of the week, actually, with a cold, head cold, and I thought I was going to skate out of that. It didn't happen. So I hear myself talking in my head right now. I'm trying to kill that feedback, but I'm good though. I'm good. I'm glad we're here. Before we get started on our subject, just want to let everybody know that if you want to comment, you can obviously comment on the live feed through our Facebook. That's one way to do it. Then we also have our Twitter, which Steve will be monitoring throughout the show. It's HC313 Podcast. Hit us up. All right, so our episode today is this is the good night thing.
Okay.
Steve gave us footnotes.
Yeah, we got footnotes now.
You know what? I reversed that. It's HC Podcast 313.
HC Podcast 313.
Told you I'm
We'll get it right.
dyslexic.
We'll get it right one of these days.
Go to one or the other. I'm sure they'll love to hear you chime in, whoever they are. So today's episode is impermanence. Impermanence is one of my favorite subjects. It was for me. It was the step beyond acceptance, the step beyond non-attachment. So just to break it down, impermanence in the Buddhist tradition, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory in the name, says that all things are impermanent. Everything within the realm of phenomena, meaning our lives, are impermanent. We can look at this logically and we can say, well, that's absolutely true. We're going to die. We grasp onto all these things and we cling to them throughout our lives, like our marriage, our children, our jobs, our relationships. We cling to these things for dear life, but they're going to go away. They're going to go away. So in the Buddhist tradition, this would be called attachment. This is where human suffering stems from. I just posted something from, I can't remember who it was from, but he said it's not the idea that a flower wilts that people suffer, but it's rather the idea that the flower should not wilt that causes the suffering. So that's what impermanence is. And impermanence for me, the thing that really kind of took away the, I don't want to, the non-attachment, just in the way it's phrased, can be misconstrued as negative. Oh, I'm not attached to anything. I'm not an ego. It's not that.
Or communist.
Or detachment.
Yeah. Or
There's so words have stigmas to them, right? So impermanence, the breakthrough for me with impermanence was, well, not only do I need to accept impermanence, because there's power in acceptance, absolutely, positively power in acceptance, but to take it a step further, I want to embrace impermanence. That means embracing the good and the bad. That means whenever anything happens, I have to look at it in a way in which will allow me to be curious rather than judgmental. So for me, impermanence is a lifesaver, and I've embraced the concept. That doesn't mean that my gut reaction is always to veer towards it. Sometimes I have to have a conversation with myself. For example, today me and my girlfriend broke up. It was a good breakup. It was a great breakup. It was necessary. It was coming, and it was amicable. We both decided that, hey, we're not supplying for each other. What you want from me, I can't give. And cool. I wish you the best, kind of thing. But there was still this gut reaction in me that's related to my abandonment issues, my PTSD, the things that are real deep seated in my subconscious, my attachment to these ideas that these types of things should not happen. Well, no, they should. We're human. Life goes on. We move on. That doesn't mean that things can't cause pain. You're allowed to feel pain. You're allowed to mourn the loss of things. But to attach to the idea that it should always be there, that's what leads to suffering, because it perpetuates the pain. Pain's natural. You got to take it at face value, and the Buddhists will say, be grateful for your pain.
Yeah, it's never going to go away. There's always going to be something to cause suffering. But what you're
pain.
going on is
Something's always going to cause pain.
And the
you cause the
recognition.
suffering.
Choose, yeah.
Right. You can perpetuate that pain. So if I fall to cancer, I always use this example. If I fall to cancer, I'm going to suffer some. Well, it's going to be painful, right?
It's gonna be
Physically
pain.
painful.
Yeah.
If I'm in a concentration camp, like Viktor Frankl, it's going to be physically painful. Now, I can choose to let them imprison my spirit also, which Viktor Frankl didn't. he found a way to morph his wife into a situation who was dead, and he didn't know if she was dead or not, but it was one day he saw her face smiling in the clouds, and that was all he needed. He said, I'm not going to let you imprison my spirit. Did that mean he didn't have to go through pain? No, he didn't have to go through pain, but he could have sat there and lamented on the fact that I'm treated like an animal. I could die any day. They've probably killed my wife. They've killed most of my family. Oh, poor me, poor me. Would he be right to say poor me? Absolutely. But what does that do for you? It does nothing. It perpetuates the pain, which then becomes suffering.
Does codependence or your codependent issue kind of coordinate with your idea of impermanence? Is there like kind of like a fuckery in the mind there?
Not sure what you're asking.
So like impermanence with nothing being permanent, right? When I apply that to like relationships and stuff, it tends to like pull on the strings of my codependency.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's
more
where,
than anything else.
that's where the gut reaction came from for me today. And I had to have a talk with myself, because in the past I would be with a woman and I would want to be out of that relationship. So I would do shit because I wasn't man enough to actually break up. I would push and
Like
push
sabotage?
until it became unbearable to be with me. Then she would go. And then the codependent in me, the little bitch
Why'd
in
you
me
go?
would be like, oh, fuck that, she's not leaving me. And then I would go win her back. And then we're back in the same fucking circle again, back and forth. And it was all codependence. Now, after there was
That's
a
a
bit,
bad thing. That's
it's
not
a,
healthy.
well, it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing, and that's clinging. And that clinging is going to lead to suffering. And we suffered for a good 7 years in that one. That was pure suffering. And we did it to each other. There was some soul agreement in that we were going to bring our codependence to the surface. And, I don't know where she's evolved. I believe she has. But for me personally, I go back to that and I say, thank you. I can say thank you for what you showed me about me. And I can move through that. But I had to let go of the idea that I fucked up by the relationship not being forever. You know what I mean? And this was the mother of my kids. The longest relationship I've ever been in. And, but society says, no, you have kids, you should stay. Bullshit. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
I would choose this over a lifelong marriage with a woman. The type of parents that I am with her right now and our relationship and what we have with the kids are on the top of the world, man. They don't because we co-parent effectively. So it's not even like we're not together. We're not physically together, but we don't need to be. There's no courts involved. There's none of the ugliness. There was at first, but we got by that and made them the priority. But in my head, I was raised with the idea that you're a failure if you don't get married. Once you have kids, if you leave that person or if that person leaves you, you failed in some capacity. I remember I couldn't admit when a woman cheated on me because I took responsibility for that shit. That made me shitty. So I couldn't tell anybody about that, and then I had to go after her and throw daggers in the best way I possibly could to diminish her as a human being.
Because you felt it was a failure on your part
On my
to
part.
not provide or not do something correctly. That
The
pushed her
inadequacy,
away.
the PTSD
Yeah.
shit would pop up. Oh, I'm inadequate, I'm a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. Not consciously. That shit ain't happening consciously. That's all subconscious. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't have the capacity to stop it. So I rolled with what I was taught as a kid. In relationships, you tell each other to fuck off. You call each other's bitches and dickheads and all the names you could pop. And there's no holds barred in the shit. This is what happens when you don't embrace impermanence. Because when you're clinging to something that really is not there to be clung to, you're going to suffer.
And
No
I think
doubt.
going
No
off
doubt.
of what you were striving for, just their codependence and impermanence, a thing that I was picking up on is sort of you can also be attached to the idea of perfection. Not just something changing, but striving for something that is perfect, and the second that it's not perfect, wanting to get rid of it.
Well, and that is attachment. Because perfection,
That's part of codependence, that's part of
it all. I mean, it all boils down to attachment. So we get attached to these ideas. Now, we're not responsible for the ideas that we believe when we're children. We don't have a moral compass. Everything's being from the third trimester until you're 3 years old. You're being programmed with information. And it's the ironic part, though, is this is when, as a parent, you think, well, they don't hear me. They don't hear me. That's when they need that shit the most because that's the programming. And then you spend your entire life unlearning those first 3 1/4 years. because that's what's programming. Now you don't even know. So only 5% of our brains operate in a conscious manner. 5% of our day is dictated by the conscious part of our brain. The other, and they've done studies on this and checked the neurons in the prefrontal cortex and the rest of the brain. So it's 400 million to 40,000 neurons per second. That's our conscious to our unconscious brain. So when you get stressed, when you get angry, when you do any of these things that limits your ability to have conscious thought, you go into autopilot. What's in autopilot? The
Habits.
bullshit. It's in, that's where, and that's not saying your parents were bad, but they didn't know not to fight in front of you. You know what I mean?
And if you don't have certain skills that were given to you or figured out, coping mechanisms, things like that, you just fall back into old
The
habits.
pattern. I didn't know that in the relationship with my kid's mother, and now I'm a study on this shit, right? So I can look at it, and I see the pattern she was repeating, and I see the pattern that I was repeating. Now, the way that I got out of ever having to admit that I was perpetuating this pattern was, well, I wasn't going to punch you. And I was like the girls that I subconsciously sought out would punch me in the face quick. You know what I mean? They were fighters. So when I started to throw my daggers, because I thought I could say anything I wanted because I'm not hitting you, right? But that's the emotion shit. That's way worse. The damage you do to a person when they believe that shit. And I didn't know till later on, after we got good with each other. She's like, well, you said this, this, and this. I'm like, and I remember asking her, I'm like, you really believe that? Of course you fucking believed it. I said it. You know what I mean? And you're in this intimate relationship. But I had a point to that, and then I skewed off on the whole thing. What was the initial point? I can't remember.
It was probably a really good point.
It was probably really good, and it'll probably come back. But perpetuating cycles. That's what it was about. Is perpetuating cycles. And now that I look at it, I see she was acting in the way that she was acting because she needed to fix that in her. And she was presenting me with, in her behavior, a way to bring out what was flawed in me that I needed to work on. But it took me years to get to the point where I could look at that and this is radical forgiveness, say thank you. Thank you for, I don't even think about how not stereotypically, but superficially I feel like she wronged me or how I wronged her. I can just look back and say thank you for all that. I don't have to say it to her.
I didn't know anything about impermanence, to tell you the truth, before I got to reference recovery. They really push it in that particular book, and understanding it was a little tricky in the beginning. I could grasp the non-attachment relatively easy. It's a practice. I had to practice not getting attached to ideas or certain things, or even like rearranging like my belief system that I was brought up with. Impermanence in just today's society it's a hard thing to like keep in place.
We're taught to cling, man.
Yeah.
From an early age. We're consumers, right? This is consumerism. Get it, hold on to it. I mean, look, extreme versions there's a whole fucking TV show on hoarders. The fuck is that? You know what I mean? But that's real on the surface type shit. But we're raised to cling, not to let that go. Till death do us part. How do you make that promise to somebody? You don't know that shit. Yeah, I mean, I would like to preface that by saying this is how I feel right now. I feel like I want to be with you for the rest of my life. Leave it at that. Stop. Just stop bullshitting. You know what I mean? And now the family believes it, and you've spent $40,000 on the wedding, and now you're a failure because now you can't get out of that shit. Oh, now the kids, they shut the fuck up with that.
It's like it's like the gambler's fallacy, where it starts to go down and you grab at it more, bet more because it's going to come through one time.
It's got to. This idea that it's got to. It can't just go this way. No, it can go that way.
Told my whole
That's
life,
how it
if
can
I
go.
do this, it will turn out this way, and it just doesn't happen with human nature.
With anything, and it's so simple when you look at it. We're going to die. Your body will be in the dirt at some point in your life. You will be gone. Everybody you love will be gone, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't mean it feels good when you lose a parent or you lose a child or you lose a dog. It feels fucking horrible. But that's part of the beauty of being human. And when you embrace impermanence, you can start to move towards those emotions and say, fuck, I'm grateful that I'm allowed to feel this. Because dogs can't. A dog can't feel that. They can do a little whimper or whatever, but they can't they don't have the ability to project into the future and think about what that's going to feel to not have that person. Sometimes that's a benefit to their mental health, right? Is they can't do that. But if we say we have this level of consciousness, which is evolved and as it pertains to everything we know that thinks on the face of the planet in the universe, we still haven't discovered life like ours. How beautiful is that? You know, and then to go into the concept of impermanence and say, well, I've only got this much time, so I better give it my fucking all. I better give everything I got to every fucking moment that I have, because I'm not gonna be here. And you, the person that I'm speaking with right now, neither will you, neither will my kids, but instead we cling. And then when the shit goes away, you're devastated. People kill themselves. They you know what I mean? They kill themselves.
I think a lot of times it gets more dramatic when you have built something in your mind that might be a little delusional, or
Yeah.
you know, when the codependency becomes so ingrained, like that particular type, like you let that person go, or that relationship breaks apart, or you know, the void
Void.
the
Yeah.
void, rather than saying like what fills that void should be spiritual, something, God, whatever you want to call it. Instead, the void, like you dwell on the void,
Because
you think about it all the time.
To you, it's all you feel. It's what there is. It's the truth.
Right. And so like my mind is now plagued with this void as well as my heart,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden like impermanence isn't coming to
Not even thinking
my
about
mind.
it.
No.
But no, what about how I feel?
Right.
What about this? This is the only real thing happening right now. And as much as it's true, it doesn't serve you.
No.
Doesn't serve you at all.
And even more than that is something that you said about dogs. You know, they don't have the ability to predict the future or make models
Or
of the
even think
future.
about it.
We do. And we can get severely depressed and attached to things that haven't happened that are barely a possibility
Right.
and be more miserable than ever.
That's where anxiety comes from. Compulsion, anxiety.
True anxiety.
Yeah, it's
about the future that
I'm
might
stuck
never
in the
happen.
future. Then we dwell on the past. That shit's done. That shit's done. Let that shit go. It's easier said than done. You know, I know that I was accused of being selfish when I was able to truly walk away from the things that where I feel like I've wronged people in my past, and we all do it, right? But I was able to truly walk away. For a long time, I couldn't, and it kept me in that PTSD bender cycle. You know, because I would pretend that it didn't hurt me, and then all of a sudden, my brain would just fucking explode, and I'd seek escape. But it's because I came back and tried to fix something that didn't need fixing. Like, our relationship doesn't need fixing. I need to fix me. I need to be good for me. Otherwise, I'm no good for you. Otherwise, this pattern continues, and this is the shit we're stuck in. And as long as you accept it, well, you're just as guilty as I am. We're partners in this shit. You know, and I always talk, and I get a lot of shit for this too when we talk about the victim mindset. And you know, there's women that'll say, and men, yeah, I was in a bad relationship for 10 years, and she or he was abusive. I was a victim. Oh, the fuck you weren't. You were the victim in that moment, but 10 years? There's a point, and I don't care if there's kids or anything. Let's just be real with ourselves and each other here. Like, there's a point where maybe living on the street is the better option. Maybe you suffer less sitting on, you know, I know my mom did it when she was pregnant with me, 9 months old, left my dad sitting on the porch of a halfway house that couldn't take her in before Christmas in Cass Corridor. But she was better off, because otherwise maybe I get killed in her stomach. You know what I mean? Like, and
But if
sometimes you just gotta go.
if your belief system is ingrained, a lot of people are going to take that abuse
Right. No,
for a long
yeah.
time.
That's the cycle, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because well, I got married, and this is what married people do, and
You
that
got religions that
yeah.
teach this shit. You can't leave your
You know,
husband. What the
right.
fuck is? Even they're
So
they're
you-
protecting
yeah.
child molesters in the case. What the fuck is this? Jesus is your teacher? Come on, man. It's insane. It's, you know, like Albert Einstein said, what's insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's with this whole Trump shit and everything that's going on in politics right now. Everyone's so quick to point a finger. You're doing the same shit. The same shit that got him elected. The same shit he says is fake, and he can stand on the other side, and his followers can say, well, he's right, because look what they're doing. Same fucking shit. We're doing the same shit all the time, and I don't get how nobody notices it. But I do, because I didn't. It took me years, and I had to get traumatized, and I had to really, and it was my son and ketamine. Like I'll always talk, ketamine, my son, quantum physics led me into spirituality, and shifts started to happen to where I started to reevaluate myself. Didn't mean the work got easy, but I started evaluating myself, and I started saying, okay, maybe the way you've been doing it is wrong. How does that happen for? And we've talked about this before. How does that happen without the trauma? Trauma is a beautiful thing if you can take that from it. It's a necessary function, right? If you can't take that from it, you live in trauma. You kill yourself. You get medicated. You become a zombie. You seek escape through heroin or binge watching Netflix. You know what I mean? You seek escape, and you go from one pleasure to the next pleasure to the next pleasure, and then you wonder why you always feel empty. I remember I went out to, so there's no coincidence that I became an actor, right? I had to have everybody adore me. Was ignored by my mother. She was trying to survive. You know, for that she loved me and gave me what she could, but she was providing for the house. And then my dad, you know, when he was around, he was abusive as fuck. And then when he left, I became the man of the house kind of until my stepdad came around. And then at that point I was real rebellious. But and there was a point to that too. I keep going off on a tangent. What were we talking about before that?
Impermanence.
No, I mean, yeah, well, I know. This head cold is
You know,
kicking my ass.
I've been thinking about this for a few minutes. This whole impermanence thing, it's really rooted in the Eastern philosophies like Buddhism and Sikhism and stuff like that. It's a really, really old idea. It's even before that. Heraclitus was the one that said, you know, everything is in flux, everything changes.
The only thing, what did he say? That's a quote of his that I love. The only thing permanent is change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Heraclitus.
The only
That's a
permanent,
3,000-year-old idea.
which is how can you not look at things, and we've been conditioned to believe that things should be forever. We were more like animals back in those days. We would accept death. It was a thing that came. People would sacrifice themselves. It was a noble thing to do. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but we weren't as attached to this idea that we should live till we're 80 with 2 picket fences and be in a marriage. And I'm not saying
Well, that's
any of those
culture.
are bad things.
That's
I'm not
culture,
saying,
Yeah, that's
too.
culture.
That's a United States
but I don't.
thing. That's a
well,
Western
well, no,
culture.
my ex was Ukrainian. She is, still is. She didn't change because we broke up, but she's Ukrainian. And very old school ideas about the knight in shining armor that's going to come and take care, and I'm going to cook and blah blah blah. That's all great. Girl from before that too. That shows my own inner codependence because I keep winding up in that. But that was the idea, and that's the idea in Sicilian culture too. You know, that's not what life is. And I teach my daughter. I'm like, you don't have to rely on anybody. You do you. Don't hurt anybody intentionally. Always tell the truth. Let the chips fall where they may.
That's a golden rule, right?
But this
How do
whole
you change a culture?
you got to do it like I'm doing it. So first it starts with yourself, then it starts with your children, and then hopefully it trickles out. You write a book, maybe somebody grasps on. You can't change an entire culture, and I think that's the problem in politics. They come up there and they present these ideas. I can change it. No, you fucking can't. Nor the people that voted for
American values.
you. You know what I'm saying?
I love apple pie.
Truth is we don't. Truth
I'm
is we don't
just
have
like
values.
Make America great again.
What
I'm just
values
like-
do we have? If you're on the land that we want, we're going to kill you. Let's talk about true values.
Yeah.
We don't have any. We're like pretty much every human being. We go with the flow.
Well, there's
we go with the flow, and then we
there's
try to-
group values, and there's personal values.
There was, there was. There's really not anymore. I mean, they try to push, but it's all politicized and.
I'm not saying they're good values, but there are. You know, there's ideas in this
Yeah.
culture that you go to work. You are successful if you go to work and you pay your bills.
Right.
That is a very American thing.
Who wants to work though?
You do. I don't.
I don't either.
No, I like working. I just want to do what I want to do.
billionaire.
I like doing this. If I were to hit the Powerball tomorrow and sit on I don't know what it is, but $400 million, I would work more. I would write more. I would shoot more movies. I would do more of this. I would do more I couldn't sit
You
on
do
my ass
more of what you loved.
of what I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a pretty good job at pushing myself into a position where I'm doing a lot of what I love. It's not exactly where I'd like it to be yet, but I'm okay with the fact because on the
Because it's
flip side,
impermanent.
impermanent.
Yeah.
This cold fucking sucks, right? It's gonna go away. It's gonna go away. I ain't gonna die. So why should I sit here and cry about it? You know, or why should
Well,
I?
You can still be miserable because of something, like we were saying earlier. Like there is a physical suffering.
Right.
and there is a mental suffering, and some of that mental suffering is a choice or a habit.
Well, you know how you get out of that suffering is you move towards something that moves you.
You have to
So,
recognize it first.
I don't even know that I'm sick right now. Once in a while, I'll get this, but all I was doing was complaining when I walked in the door. Oh, this fucking hand cold. But when I'm sitting here speaking about things that move me, it's not there. It'll be there when I leave, and I'm gonna go home, do the right thing, get some soup, and lay on the couch and cry. You know what I mean? But it doesn't have to make me suffer. I don't have to let it win. It doesn't have me leveled right now. Sure, that's okay. It's impermanent. It's gonna go away.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a choice.
It is
Part
a
of
choice.
it is a choice. But you do have to recognize it first.
You do.
And you have to have those mechanisms in place. Like somebody that's never looked at spirituality, never had a conversation like this, that's just stuck in a cannery doing the same thing over and over, and that's their life. They might not know that there are options about how to think about things.
They don't, and that's why it's real hard to go back and say and blame your parents for anything. They did the best they could with even my dad. He did the best he could with what he had. He would try to sneak in a road. He didn't know how to be a father, right? He did what he saw, and what he saw wasn't that great. He didn't have access to information like we have now. He couldn't Google, teach me how to be a father. You know, is it okay to hit your kids? Is it
Yeah,
okay?
you don't get a manual for it, right?
No. But now what you do have is access to information. You have access to information, and the information's always changing. It's impermanent.
Big time.
It's impermanent. And to not look at the way we were, we're basically gods compared to what they would have thought 100 years ago. With everything that we're capable of doing
Basically
now with
magic.
the internet, I mean, it is. It's magic. No, you can't communicate at the speed of light.
On
What is
that,
the speed of light?
I like to be fluid with my thoughts and opinions, and my beliefs and my understandings. Like the whole political thing. Politics really bothers me because it seems like people get onto a team like I'm a Republican and whatever they do is correct. Anything that Democrats do, they're incorrect because I'm red. Well, I try to understand things because things are constantly changing. So today you might ask me if I'm a Republican, and I might say yes. You talk to me in a week, I might say I'm a Democrat or an independent. And I think that's important too. Don't be afraid to change your mind about things.
Well, and you know
What
what?
you believe doesn't
Change is
actually define
inevitable.
you.
Change is inevitable.
You
And
can
if
resist all you want.
If
but
you stay fixed position, life's gonna run over you. If you stay like grounded in my beliefs and like in a fixed position, you're gonna get your ass whooped by life. You constantly need to grow. You need to always keep seeking. And politics, so both my parents were teachers and stuff, so they and they're from this area, so they all were both Democrat, and so I learned democratic values and all that stuff, and I was raised Democratic, but in today's society, like, I can't identify with either party, so I'm just kind of like placed here. And when the election comes around, I'll be voting for the lesser of two evils because I'm going to make sure I vote. Because, to tell you the truth, my old man was like, if you don't vote, you ain't got no reason to bitch.
you don't.
It's a good point.
If you don't vote, when things go bad, keep your fucking mouth shut because you didn't do anything to better the situation. You sat on your fucking ass eating Frito-Lay bullshit. And,
You can make all the excuses you
Yeah.
want to not walk that.
If you're not a part of it, you don't get to
There's a
talk
polling
about it.
station
Right.
every few blocks. You go to that
Exactly.
elementary school, drop your
Yeah.
shit in. But an interesting thing with politics is that I'm not either. I'm not a Christian. Study Christianity. I'm not a Buddhist. I study the hell out of Buddhism. I am, and that's when Moses was speaking with God, the flaming bush. He said, "Well, who are you? When I go back, who should I tell them that you are?" And God said, or the flaming bush, or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, however you take this as literal or otherwise, there's a metaphor to it, and that's I am that I am. I'm not any of those things. And as soon as I label myself as one of those things, I'm in danger of attaching to the idea that I'm that. Now it's hard for me to listen to somebody who's, say, blue because, well, I'm not that. So what you're saying can't be right because I'm this and you're that. And that's what that is.
And it creates opposition.
And that's all
For
it is.
no reason.
And all it
Everyone's
is
got an
opposition.
angle. Everything has an angle to it.
Now, and that's all insecurity. Now you got to support your agenda because not because you believe in it so much, and maybe you do, but for the most part, you just don't want to be wrong because you feel shitty when you're wrong. So now you sit there and you create arguments, and a lot of people aren't even listening. They're just looking for things to chime in on so that they can that they can spew things out of their mouth
Yeah, because groupthink feels good.
to make them feel good.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
problem.
on the winning team. I'm on the winning team. It makes me feel good. It gives me endorphins and things.
And the crazy thing is, you're not winning unless we're all winning.
You know, Terrence McKenna was always really big on eliminating labels. You know,
Massive.
like break down. Forget the label that you're an American.
Get it?
Forget all your
Lose that
culture.
shit.
That you are the I am that I am.
Yep.
You're a spiritual being, pretty much cruising around on this plane of existence, trying to help out other spiritual beings, raise their vibration, raise their frequency, so that there's less suffering going on in the world, and that you give those that are coming up behind us something better than what we had.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of Buddhism too. I think a lot of religions try to, the way that I understand many of the Abrahamic religions is, you know, they try to spread, right? They try to spread their word and everything. I feel like Buddhism specifically is more about raising everybody's frequency. There's less negativity in it and less finger pointing. And I'm not saying go out and become a Buddhist or anything, but if you're interested in this kind of thinking, I think it's a great place to start.
Well,
If you want to be spiritual or look into the spirituality of human beings.
the center point of the foundation of Buddhism is the alleviation of suffering. There's no religion to that.
No, it's
You
the
don't have to
four,
believe
you
in
got
it.
the Four Noble Truths and you got the four thoughts, right?
They-
The
well,
Four
the
Noble
Eightfold
Truths
Path.
is
Eightfold Path.
the Four Noble Truths is you know, there is suffering, you will suffer. There is a way to not suffer. And once you're not suffering, you will eventually suffer again. And going back to what I said in the other show, I think it's important to point out that when we talk about Buddhism and suffering, the actual meaning doesn't translate really well to English, and it's actually more akin to dissatisfaction with life, not suffering.
Right.
Because when you say suffering, people immediately think, "Oh, my arm hurts."
Right. Because that's
Not
what suffering
what we
is,
mean.
though. It's a It's this never-ending dissatisfaction with all that is. All that is right here. All that is what happens to you. All that is what you do. That's all that is. If you think it should be another way, and you don't believe that you have the power to change that, you're going to suffer. You're
Unless
going to
you have
suffer because
acceptance.
you think it should be a different way, and just because you think it, that's part of the reason for the last breakup, man. Is I'm not here to read your mind, right? I don't have time for that. I have a life. I have kids. I can't, and this is with coworkers too, with people that work for me. I can't tiptoe around your emotions, man. I don't have time for that shit. And I'm sorry if you think I'm a dick. I'm not.
I get called an asshole a whole lot
but I
because I'm
can't.
exactly like that, especially at work.
Can't do it. I got my own shit to worry about. And people
No
have these
games.
expectations that because I want life to be this way, it should be that way. Then when it's not that way, rarely do they communicate it because
You're not
typically,
doing what I want you to do.
right, you're not doing what I want you to. Well, what the fuck do you want me to do? Hey, Lee, let's talk about
You're
it so I can tell you
supposed
yes
to
or
be
no.
able to read my mind.
What are you mad about? You don't know.
Yeah, You should
should
know.
know.
You
Yeah.
should know.
You should know. No, the fuck I shouldn't. I have no clue. I don't know what I know half the time. And you want me to know what you know too?
Yeah.
It's insane. But that again, that's attachment. And that is believing that things should be a certain way. Now we can bust our
And
ass
that's
to make things the
expectation.
way we would like them to be.
Yeah.
We can bust our ass to do that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're attached that it should be that way, when it's not that way, which happens more often than not, you get devastated. You get that's where depression comes from. We're a depressed society.
I really believe that if you practice present time awareness, suffering does cease more than anything else. I think once I learned to not focus on the future will get there when it gets there. That if I stay in the moment and I practice present time awareness with non-attachment, that, impermanence just falls right in line with it. That I'm always going to change.
Mm-hmm.
we're always changing, and that if I'm open to new ideas and I'm open to change and I'm open to believing or rewiring my belief system, that it's all going to work out. That the faith that I have in myself and in my creator, that it's all going to work out in the end. I need not worry. Stop thinking about a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, and all that bullshit. I wasn't like, I was brought up like in fixed type thinking. It was really unity that like helped me unravel a lot of the thinking that I was grabbed onto. You know, I was embedded in a lot of like bullshit thinking.
It was your identity.
Right.
You'd worn this. You didn't know anything about it.
I think there came a time where I was just like on a mission to seek. You know, that I wanted just like, I'm gonna go find out like what the fuck is out there. You know, and a lot of spiritual
What
experiences.
kept you from doing that earlier? Was there a fear that you had? What was
Alcoholism.
that was more of like a band-aid, right? Or an
No,
escape.
like
I believe it was searching. That's what Carl
Like-
Jung would argue, is that you've lost a part of yourself you're using, because you do develop this temporary connection to, it's fake, right? But all of a sudden you don't care about the fact that you feel isolated. You've now connected with your buddy. Alcohol.
I think I got like once I really became physically dependent on alcohol, like it just I was locked in. Like I'm a 24/7 drinker. Like I will not stop until I end up in jail, in the hospital, or God does some sort of whatever to bring me to my knees. But I can't break away from alcohol once, like one shot, man. One
Do you
shot.
remember? Do you remember the moment that you decided to seek? Like, what was the catalyst to that?
So I got sober, and my sponsor was like Church of Today, Jack Boland,
Yeah.
all that shit. And then what happened was, he's like, dude, you're kind of fucked up. You know, like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, let me take you, like, we're going to go to church. And I was like, what? And he's like, dude, this is the church where, like, addicts and alcoholics go. Like, this is, like, the rejects church. I was like,
It's like the
oh.
Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I was like, whatever. So he took me over to, you know, Renaissance Unity over in Warren. And it was just pre-Marianne Williamson. Like, I think Les Brown was up on stage. And I was like, wow. And then, like, he kind of showed me what was going on at the church. There was, like, meetings there. Like, they were talking about shit that was, like, really exciting to me. So I kind of started going there. And all of a sudden, like, I just kind of I just had a thirst for spiritual knowledge. And I just started to go after some stuff. And in like 2008, I ended up going to the Detroit Urban Ministerial School, which is a unity-based ministerial school, because I wanted to know what was in the fucking Bible. Like, I've heard people like use that book for every fucking reason under the sun, and I really like I wanted to know like what is this, you know? And you know, there was a pastor there who taught me like this book is like a metaphysical book. It's not meant to be taken literal. And everything means something different than what people think it means. But he broke it down. And then there was a bunch of other books like 12 Powers of Man, Lessons in Truth, all these things with New Thought, Emmett Fox. I started crushing all that. Then I started getting into Buddhism and Taoism. And I crushed all these books and just really went after it. And I
Well,
kind of
thank
just
God
got
for impermanence. Then,
Yeah.
Because you were going down a hell of a path, and you found that out of nowhere.
shit, man. I still ended up relapsing after like I ended up relapsing in like 2000. I was like 3 weeks shy of 6 years, and like ended up relapsing and stuff. And I always like, I don't know what it is. My relationship with God is like really, it's like almost everything to me, because I get so like amazed at miracles. And I've learned never to judge the size of a miracle. But miracles, when you see them happen, like, it just excites the fuck out of me. Like, I can't explain it. Like, there's something that goes on that's undescribable that makes me feel like,
Yeah, I can dig that. I mean,
you
that's
know,
it's miraculous.
Well,
yeah,
Of course, you're gonna feel something. There's probably not even a word for it.
yeah, there's probably no word for
Another
it.
quote from Einstein. He said, "There's only two ways you can live. One, as if everything is a miracle. Two, as if nothing is. Everything's a miracle. Even if you're agnostic, atheist, you believe that we're worm food, you believe that everything's predetermined, it's still pretty fucking cool that we can think about that. You know what I mean? Even if this is a process of evolution and there is no woo-woo to it, still pretty damn amazing. You know,
Well, I think it can be amazing without being a miracle.
I think it's all, that's what Einstein was saying. Everything's a miracle or everything's not. So even if it's just by chance that we landed in the habitable zone and that our axis is tilted at the right degree and gravity is laying down on the earth at within, it's like 1/1000th of a billionth of a billionth part to where things would start to fly off at the rate that we spin. That to me is a miracle. I don't care if it came from physics, which it probably did, but I don't think physics precludes a conscious creator. I think they can both coexist. I don't know if one does, but I know physics exists, but I don't know where that comes. But anyway, I got off track. But the point is that it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we can sit here and have these conversations, and then we look at all the other things that inhabit this planet with us. They can't. They can't. And there's some beauty to that. You know, they don't fear death. They walk through life, and then one day they get smashed because it's a bee and somebody wants them to. They don't think about it. They don't have to suffer. They just die. You know what I mean? We have the ability to think about that stuff, and then the point of Buddhism or even Christianity or any of the great traditions is, well, we know this is going to happen. How do we not suffer? How do we not suffer because of it?
Yeah.
It's fucking impermanent. It's impermanent. So be curious, more so than saying, it's got to be this way. Be curious. And that's what I had to revert to today because the breakup just happened today. And the gut response is the codependent, because I know I can say the right words and have that not happen. But that's not the right thing to do because it's not the right relationship to be in. But the codependent wants to chime back in and say some shit that'll make, because it's painful.
And just draw it out even longer.
Yeah, because oh man, I'm really hurting her, or I'm hurting me, and let me say some shit that'll alleviate this uncomfortable feeling. No, you got to go to impermanence and say, well, I really appreciate the time we had together. You know, and that's what you got to do with your parents, even if it's bad. I appreciate the time. That's radical forgiveness. I appreciate the time, whether we consider it good or bad. I appreciate the time we spent. It's a miracle that we encountered each other and we were able to share that time. I wish you the best. I wish you the best. You know, same with your dog. I know a lot of people trip out when their dogs get put down. You should feel emotional. The dog's gonna die. The flower. I had
Him and the bees and the
I
flowers
know.
today.
Dog's gonna die, man.
and it's the truth. Like, that's the thing. And it doesn't make it any easier.
Stop killing hypothetical dogs, then.
I got to. I kill my kids sometimes, hypothetically. I shouldn't do
No,
that either.
don't
You
do
know?
that.
But that's really the amount of thought I want to put into it. It's like, okay, you talk this talk. Can you walk it? And I don't know yet. You know, I don't know. I did well today being able to say, oh, that I truly appreciate that time. There's no reason to drag this out because of this uncomfortable feeling right now. This was necessary. Now, if something happens to my kids, will I be that spiritual? I don't know. That's the one space where I know I can get level to my core, and you might find me in a pool of vomit 2 weeks later. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But I think about it because I want to be prepared, because it can happen. Do I want it to happen? Absolutely not. Do I want to die long before my kids? Absolutely. Can I predict that? No. Why should I dwell on it?
And when you say, like, you want to be prepared, I know the same feeling. Obviously, like losing a parent or something, you want to be prepared for that thing. And I think what you mean by being prepared is not sitting there and thinking about it over and over and over. It's actually getting tools in place, coping mechanisms and things in your mind, spiritual
Impermanence.
or otherwise, impermanence.
If you know
so
it's
you're
all
able
impermanent,
to do it.
yeah, if you know it's all impermanent, it'll
You can
sting.
prepare it in some way.
But you can say, I don't know what that purpose is.
Might not be any.
You know, I'm going to go cry for a little bit. I need my space. I need to get out of here. I need to think about some things. I'm going to come back to life. I'll see you guys back in life. You know, and I know if I were to pass, I want my kids to move on. I want them to move on. It's
That's natural.
right. So why do we cling? We know why we cling. We're programmed to cling to everything, cling to ideas, cling to the television, cling to your favorite characters in a show, cling to the life you wish you had. You know, it's clinging.
I think the grieving process, though, can be different for everyone.
It's
I
way
think,
different. Yeah.
I think it's almost to the point where it's like a snowflake. Each individual, each human being has its own grieving process
Agreed.
that's completely unique. Then how my grieving process is going to be completely different than his, completely different than yours. It just is going to be
And it's
that
beautiful
way.
that it's that
Right.
way. If we can look at each other and quit saying, "Well, yours should be the same as mine," I mean, no,
And I
that's,
just find it fucked up how people judge other people's grieving
Yeah,
processes.
yeah,
It's like, what the fuck, dude?
no, that's how they're doing it.
You know, like, I don't, it baffles me sometimes. You know, you just gotta let people do what they're gonna do. You know, you can't. Matters of the heart. You know, we're all have a different skill set. We're all on a different plane of spiritual whatever. How I react and how I'm going to heal is going to be however God and I figure that shit out. It may be a long process, maybe short. Who fucking knows? I don't know.
But it's mine.
But it's mine,
Yeah,
and I can own it today.
and you know what's
I don't think it's a choice either.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
It's
it
one
is.
of those things that just happens, like
Like I'm not going to be able to choose how I want to heal with my grieving process.
or how
Like
you're gonna feel if
You can- no, you
this
can-
isn't gonna hurt.
no, it's gonna hurt. That shit's gonna hurt. But that's the thing. Accept it. Embrace it. Fuck. I know it's coming. I know I'm gonna hurt. I know tragic things are going to happen in my life. I know it already. So let me just take it in. Take it in for what it is. Easier said than done.
way easier said
Easier
than
said
done.
than done. I've
I've
gotten
been
good
a-
at it.
I've been a Christian apostate for, I don't know, a decade. I've been studying spirituality and Buddhism for many years, as you know. And a couple years back, my mother killed herself. And
That's painful.
even with all the preparation that I thought I had and all the tools that I thought I had and all the strength that I thought I had, I was absolutely fucking devastated. And there was no arguing my way out of it. There was no positive thinking. Nothing did it for me.
If you get to the root of why you get devastated, and that's what I learned in cognitive processing therapy, and that's why I'm on the other end of PTSD, that pattern, because I will ask myself first, real objectively, what just happened? Here's the truth of the matter. This person died. How do you feel about it? Extremely sad. I want to kill myself. I want to die now too. Hold on. Is that feeling real? Is that based on the reality of this person dying? Is that a natural and normal thing, a way to feel? Does that make sense? And when I got the ability to ask myself these questions, I could always go back, and it was always tied to something in my subconscious, and it was always tied to an idea that I was attached to. And if I could get to that idea, when I asked myself, I could say, "Well, no, this isn't based on reality. I'm just sad. I don't want to kill myself." You know what I mean? But that took years of therapy to get to a point to where I can go through and almost instinctively now I can ask myself, is this real?
You can step back
What
from it.
what is this emotion attached to? Because I know what it feels like to be really sad and devastated. I know what it feels like to be borderline suicidal. It's a different thing. I'm suffering at a level that I shouldn't be. I don't want to say shouldn't, because people, like you said, people deal with it in the way they deal with it. I've gotten myself into trouble too, because when I speak like this with you guys, or even outside of here at Unity, people will say, "Well, who are you to say that I can't suffer that?" I didn't say that. I'm just saying there's a better way.
Yeah,
You know,
but
that I mean, at least for me, there's a better way. I'm not saying that. I'm not judging your suffering.
You
Like,
gotta be pretty ignorant to hear you talking and say, "Oh, you're telling me how I should feel."
but not ignorant though. Well, what if you're
It's a discussion.
Right, but not people. People aren't wired that
and
way.
it's working for you. And that's
People
great.
don't normally have healthy discussions in today's society right
it's-
now.
No.
I think the
That's why we need
government, the
podcasts.
government and all the shit that's going on has got everyone so jacked up and so divided that a healthy conversation about anything ends up being like a verbal Royal Rumble. You know, it just, people can't even exchange ideas without feeling like they're attacked or anything.
There's
You
a
know?
benefit to that, though. So if there's a benefit to Trump and everything that's going on there, there's a benefit to the extreme right, the extreme left. It's very uncomfortable to have to go through it. But if you're one of those people that have been complacent, you haven't really said your piece. Well, now you got to kind of for me, I got to force myself to be a light because I was part of the fuck him. He's an asshole. He's this. He's an idiot. He's this. And there was great justification to say all of those things. Was I helping anything? No, I was fueling that fire. Flip side of the same coin. It's easy to stand behind the guise of virtuosity and punch people as a result of that. What you got to ask yourself is, am I really just a son of a bitch that wants to punch somebody? And that's the truth. Like, that's what you really have to ask yourself. Am I really just a son of a bitch that gets off on punching people? And I've found my reason now. And I think a lot of that, as much as I disagree with his politics and what he's done, I think I just wanted to punch somebody, and he was an easy target.
Well,
And all I did was
earlier,
fuel the fire.
You wanted to be right. And bandwagoning is very easy to
I wanted
be
to
right.
feel right.
Bandwagoning is
I didn't want to be right. I wanted to feel right. And I felt right because I disagreed with what he did. But the way that I was going about it was only, okay, you're all attacking me. You all lie about me. You're all after me. Wham, 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 poor me. I'm just giving you that on a platter. You're right. You're right. Now just keep doing what you're doing because you have to defend yourself because I'm a fucking asshole. Impermanence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
On impermanence and what you were just talking about, people not being able to have like good hearty discussions that are nice or anything like that. Anytime
Shut
I
up,
get
Steve.
into conversations, I like to ask myself, am I listening? What would it take for me to change my mind? I love asking myself that because there's a lot of people that they just will not change their mind, and it means that they're just blasting words at you.
They're stuck.
They're not there to listen to you or learn anything from you, or perhaps you mentioned something. I like to be the person that if you mentioned something cool that I hated at first, but you said it in such a way, I like to be able to say, damn it, I feel like I was wrong. I feel like I'm going to get rid of the way that I thought.
Or I'm
and
going to look some
take
of that shit up.
Yeah, that's
you
too
know?
interesting to ignore.
Well, we're gonna have to look shit up now because we could go on for another hour, but we've reached the end. Thank you for keep the questions coming, the inboxes. We enjoy it. Show ideas. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can do it on Facebook or 313HC.
Yeah,
We'll
something.
figure it out, man. Thank you for tuning in.